Are we rocking and rolling? Look at us. Look at us.
Hey.
You don't have to live with pain or chronic neuro issues any longer. In this podcast, you will learn how to stabilize your brain, body, and biochemistry for the rest of your life. I'm Dr. Teams, and this is the Neuro Reset Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Neuro Reset Podcast. We are here today with a very special guest. This has been, I'd say, a short but long time in the making. Long-time listener, first-time visitor, right?
Yes.
We have this guest with us who has, what I will say, been through the ringer. She was a patient here at the office at Desert Brain and Spine. But ultimately, I wanted to hear her story so that all of you out there in listening and watching land can see someone who's done it, who's been in what I call the pit of misery, but has clawed her way out, has learned new things, has built and grown this entire year. And it's been just such a wonderful ride to be on and a pleasure to watch it happen. It's kind of like a metamorphosis from like a caterpillar to a butterfly. And I'm just really excited to hear your story. So everybody,
emotional right off the bat.
everybody welcome Abigail, one of the strongest people that set foot in this office.
Wow. Thank you.
So, Abigail, you know, we were talking before the podcast on not using some words, right, about identification and what you were dealing with, and that you don't want to say those words now because you don't identify with them anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to share your story with what you were dealing with, and then to share what you have been able to do and accomplish, and then new challenges that you might be dealing with now, right, as opposed to then. Right, a walk around the block compared to rim to rim at the Grand Canyon. Those are two different challenges, right?
Yeah.
And so I would love to invite you to share your story. First, let's start with kind of how it all happened.
Okay.
Like what was going on, maybe a little bit on how you got there, and kind of the state that you were in when you walked into this office.
Yeah. What a state I was in.
You were in Arizona State, right?
Yeah. Yes. I didn't actually walk into this office. I had to be wheeled into this office. So what a change. Today I'm able to come in, drive myself, made it here in
That's
one piece.
awesome.
And thinking back to that first day. You know, it's crazy. It's exactly 1 year since I first came to this office.
Is it really?
It's like, literally, I have a screenshot of the first appointment, and I have this here. It is January 9th, 2023.
You've got to be kidding me.
I'm not joking, and I didn't plan that.
I didn't plan that. Oh my gosh, I'm like getting the chills.
Serendipity, like.
Wow. I'm like tearing up a little bit. That's like pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I have all these, I'll show you after the pictures of, my mom was taking pictures when I was doing the first tests, and I had this jacket over my head. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but this is kind of showing how I was when I first set foot in this office. I started driving here. I had to pull over because I didn't feel safe, like, at the wheel. So we switched. My mom took over. We pulled into the parking lot, and she's like going in to tell them, we are here, we're not late, like. I remember but that. I can't figure out how to get her to the doorway from the car. So she comes, Kathy and Ree, I think, they bring a chair, an office chair, out to the car door, and my mom, like, or to the office door. And my mom basically, like, half walk, half carries me up there, and they wheel me in, and I can't even sit up on the chiropractic table to do my tests. I had to do everything laying down, and I was able to do the balance one, which is shocking, but I had to wait, like, I think it was like 20 minutes.
It was like a half hour to an hour to get all the testing done, right? Because you had to hang out for a bit.
Yeah, I just laid on the table in the dark, like the lights are off, and I had to have a coat. I had my blue windbreaker over my head, and I remember that. I had no idea what any of you looked like, where I was. Like, I was just
I mean,
hearing
I got a face
voices.
for radio, so that's probably a good thing.
So,
So let's back up.
yeah.
Why did you have to pull over?
So,
So like, what were you feeling? What,
Yeah.
you're like, I didn't feel safe driving. Why?
yeah.
I know
so,
overstimulation was a thing in the beginning, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Motion sickness was really intense. That's something I've been working on recently. But now, obviously, I can drive no problem. But so motion sickness for me, thankfully, if I do get nauseous, I don't throw up, which is nice. But just dizziness, a ton of tension. It just feels like my whole upper body, especially my jaw area, because that's where I had
You had some trauma
issues
there, right?
with TMJ,
Have or had?
lockjaw. Had. Yeah. So, yeah, it would feel like just rocks. Like I would be relaxed when I would get in the car, and then it's like
Just
even
that
if I wasn't in
tension.
crazy traffic, it would just be so tense, and it would really start like throbbing, like not just like, oh, I have a knot there, let me like work it out. It would be like just over the top, like like as if you were in bumper to bumper traffic, but there's like nobody
And
around.
like in a hurry, right?
Yeah,
You're late,
yeah, like
you can't
stress
go
driving.
anywhere.
But
Yeah.
it's like I'm in my neighborhood. Like there's like
It's a
I'm
nice neighborhood
like
too.
25. Yeah, it is a nice neighborhood. Yeah, and especially it was during the day I was driving here. And I used to be extremely sensitive, like crazy sensitive to light. So like traffic lights, right? Like road lights, and just even the sun. So like that was during the daytime. So like I couldn't go anywhere without my sunglasses. And even then, like when I was really triggered, I would put like as soon as I got out of the driver's seat and I could cover my head and close my eyes. And it still feels like there's like just my eyes are hurting, like on fire.
Yeah. Like you couldn't escape it, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty intense to come in here, right? But we made it through.
Yeah.
That was a fun visit. Meeting your mom, meeting you.
Yes.
In the past, since then, I've met your sister and your other sister, which has been a pleasure as well.
Yeah.
I hope they're doing good.
They are.
They're
They're
doing good.
thriving. Yeah.
Love it.
Both graduated from here.
We've had a lot of graduations this year.
Yeah.
That's been pretty cool. So, let's see if we can outline or kind of cliff note some of the things that occurred.
The episodes.
Like things that caused you to feel the way you felt when you first came in.
Like the kind of
Call it
powerful
yeah,
incidents.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there were things that happened that really messed with you,
Stressors,
right?
yeah.
Huge stressors.
Yeah.
We'll call it. I know that over the course of being in college, we can talk. You were a military baby, right?
Yeah.
You guys were constantly moving, so you had a very tight knit family, right? And you had the ability to generate friends, but it wasn't like everybody else who stayed in one place.
Yeah.
And
A lot of like instability during the developmental years.
but at the same time, the one stable factor was family.
Yes.
So you guys are very tight knit.
Yeah.
And so, when something happens with one person, it happens to other people, right? You all feel it together, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting dynamic to see. It's super powerful, but at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah. When we heal, we really like when we celebrate really all together. But when someone's struggling, it's like
Yep, you guys share that.
Yeah.
And it's really powerful to see because when things and even certain people in the family might have a negative connotation to things, it floods everybody else, right? And sometimes the person who's doing all the taking care of doesn't realize some of the things that they're doing, right? And so they're trying everything that they can. And on the flip side, it's like, is it really helping? Which was really interesting and very hard conversations to have. By the way, something smells amazing in here. I don't know who's cooking what.
What is that?
It smells like cookies.
Yeah.
my last office next door.
Yes. Yeah.
So for those that are listening, we're getting blasted with some form of like baking
Through the
something.
vents.
It's like cookies, cinnamon rolls,
Cinnamon
something
something.
like that. And it just smells amazing and it's making me hungry because I forgot my lunch at home today. Anyway, I'm going to blooper. So Abby over here, she had dealt with some pretty serious, what I will say, emotional traumas in college, right? College, and that really sent you for a tailspin. After that, I think you started developing jaw stuff. I don't know if the timeline is right.
Yeah.
So these jaw issues, to the point where you even had surgery for these jaw issues, right?
Multiple. Yeah.
Multiple surgeries. Did they help?
No.
Okay, so we're dealing with multiple surgeries with someone who dealt with a major emotional stressor that developed like a nervous system problem.
Yeah.
But it presents physically, right, with jaw.
Yeah.
And so we're going through this, and I'm seeing these things that this person's already dealing with trauma. Their body's responding in this fight or flight response. Let's put them through another trauma of surgery. Let's put them through another trauma of surgery so I can just watch your hope and your confidence in the medical system just fail, right? Just right in front of your eyes. And you're like, nothing's going to help, nothing's going to help. And then you ended up at a colleague of mine at his office, Dr. Lavender, and I give kudos to that guy for referring you here.
Yeah.
Because he did a lot of really good work with you. And his role, I think, was very specific to get you to a certain place where then you were to take the next step in that stepping stone, right? I was a stepping stone that then lasted anywhere from probably, 9 months? And then I referred you to the next person. And I think that's like the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a summary of your travel, but working through, I'm really curious to hear your experience going through this journey with like functional neurology and the rehab and everything that we did to the point of going to see the other colleague and like hypnotherapy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So tell me about your experience here in this office with how you felt, what it was like, what your tolerance was like, when you made changes, other changes we had to make in habits and things like that. Just tell me, what you would tell somebody else looking for help.
Yeah. So when I first met with you, what was really groundbreaking for me and my mom, we both couldn't stop talking about it after, was the way that you validated the things that I had been through and the suffering that I was in. You listened so attentively, and I felt like you believed me, and that's not something that I always felt when I went, seeking help from other, specialists or doctors or whatnot. And then you said, I think I know what's going on, which is a relief, because so many people would say, this is very complicated. And you said that too. Like, this is not just this might require other pieces. Like you said, I might be a stepping stone. You said that from the beginning. And you said, I really think that I can help you, but you didn't promise me anything. Like, I for sure, I can do this. Like, I had some people would say, oh, I know what it is. All you have to do is take this medicine or whatever, or do this treatment. I'm going to fix you. And you're like, just from the beginning, it was very much like, we're going to work together. And like you and I, the team, the staff here, and also my family. And it being a very, it's going to take the village, but it was just a relief. Like, I knew it wasn't too good to be true, because you weren't like, yeah, I have this, one magic pill, fix all thing. It was like, we have the technology, we have the data. This is I can see what's going on in your brain. I can see this is functioning well, and yet here you are having all these symptoms, and yet Like, that happened a lot when I would go to specialists. I would get like my heart tested. I would get take a blood test, and they would say like everything looks great, so we don't understand why you're having symptoms. And so it was really reassuring because you were saying, your brain is really healthy and functional, but you understand that there's something else there. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I do.
Yeah.
What I'll try to do is kind of clear that up.
Yeah.
So for those listening, we do a series of tests called a V&G. So it's an eye test, tests all eye movements, which allow me to measure all parts of the brain. It allows me to look at the pathways. For that, we do the balance testing, and then we do that other coordination, that tap testing, right? Mm-hmm. And so what that does is it shows me what the pathways are doing, right? So I'm evaluating the pathways. Secondary to that, I'm looking at how those pathways are integrating. And then after that, I look at what your tolerance is like, right? So I take your history and I take your testing and I put it all together and say, all right, what are the pathways doing? What are the integration doing of those pathways? And then what is that end result of your tolerance? When you came in with a jacket over your head, right, being wheeled in, I knew your tolerance for gravity, stimulation, driving, all of that was low. So I knew by default that the integration wasn't so hot, right? The integration was probably like listening to maybe a first grade orchestra try to play together, as opposed to like a college or professional orchestra. But when I went in and tested your pathways, the pathways were all normal. So I knew that it was an integration issue. So I knew that I wasn't the only person to help you out. That's where I knew that we needed other practitioners to help you through this, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we had to get your system strong enough so that you could basically go up against those things, right? And I'll say a lot of people have demons to deal with, right? Sometimes those demons can feel so strong that people are afraid to or can't handle when they start to engage with them. So my role, I felt with you, was to improve the strength of your nervous system to the point where you could fight those demons. And in this case, that was use all the training from Skip to really burst through and break down all those barriers on your own. Like, you have all the tools that you need to feel extremely good and to heal and to thrive. You just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
And I think now you do.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see you rolling in here, like checking things off your list, having new goals.
Yeah.
Like, that's really, really cool. So tell some of these listeners, or could you please tell some of these listeners what it was like going through some of the exercises and some of the things that we did?
Yeah. So when I first started, even just doing the tests, that was so intense. But I did a reeval today, and it was like, I couldn't believe how easy it was. But it just really took me back, like, that. I just can't believe I did that, like, on top of the exercises. Because that alone, like, at the very beginning, was so much work for my brain. Like, just, following or staring at a red dot that's moving. And that's similar to some of the exercises we do, like the saccades. So when I would first I think we started with breathing, which was absolutely groundbreaking. And then I remember, like, some of the slingshots and, like, figure eight, the dual task kind of, pat your head, rub your belly. That's how I explain it to other people. It was so hard to focus and get my, coordinate my movements. The figure eight one, just with a little practice, was easier, but it would be what was really frustrating, or what was really challenging with a lot of the exercises, is they were simple to learn, and with practice I felt that I could do them, but always after I would have intense symptoms and I would just feel so tired. Like, it would be sometimes in my body, but more just like brain tired. Like after I would always come first thing in the morning, but it would feel like I had,
Been through a whole
been
day
through,
of work.
yeah, just like, yeah, like you could stare at a page and read the same line over and over like 10 times, and like that kind of brain fatigue. I would have dizziness. I would have, like brain fog. I would need to close my eyes. They would turn off the lights in here for me.
Was anxiety present at that time?
Yeah. I think.
Certainly towards the beginning, right? There was
Yeah.
some towards the beginning.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, it wasn't like anxiety. It was anxiety, but it was certainly labeled as anxiety, right? And just for clarity out there, she was labeled with like POTS in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So if anybody's not familiar with that, it's basically where the body goes into a state where the heart rate can go high, the blood pressure can drop, but essentially the symptoms are brain fog, dizziness, anxiety, headaches, migraines, light sensitivity. So it mimics, or it happens often after emotional traumas, viral infections like COVID and stuff like that, and then head injuries. So the diagnosis doesn't tell you what's going on, right? Which is what we were talking about before we even started the podcast is like, number one, you didn't have to mention it. I've mentioned it for you.
Yeah.
But you were told that you had this and that you basically had to live with it. There's very minimal treatment for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's your meds, here's your salt, and here's your compression stockings.
The salt.
Right? And while the salt does help change the volume of your blood, that's just a Band-Aid, right?
Oh,
the
yeah.
problem is your brain not being able to control where the blood flow goes and how much to send it there, right? You could do one task at a time, let alone walking and talking, let alone just driving, right? A more complex task. Your brain was so disintegrated that it couldn't do two things at once, which to me was great to see because that means all I have to do is get you to do two things at once and you're going to be feeling so much better, right? But it goes further than that.
Yeah.
You know, I had to understand what your goals were, right? You wanted to hike,
Yeah.
right? And then within a couple of months, you're starting to hike a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're starting to control some of those overstimulation episodes and you're able to breathe yourself out of it. I remember you were like, I was coming back from a hike with I think it was your mom, and you started you getting worn out and overstimulated on the way back. Mm-hmm. And you ended up telling me that you ended up breathing your way through it and that you were actually fine afterwards. So you're like, I felt it, but it felt like I hiked. It didn't feel like I was overstimulated.
Yeah.
And that was the moment that I knew that you were all in. Like you were busting your butt, even though you weren't feeling it just yet. And it wasn't until I think that episode or that it just helped you understand that you did have control over your own nervous system. It wasn't the other way around anymore.
That was really one of the breakthroughs actually. And this is what I was getting to. On the first consult was like, you believed me and you said you thought you had I think I can help you. And also you have a lot more power than you even could possibly imagine. Like you think that, I don't know if you said it in this way, but it was just a very different way of looking at it that I hadn't. A lot of doctors and specialists in my experience do not approach it that way, especially with these labels. So these things were all on the table, autoimmune diseases, and you have this, you have these labels, you have these issues, diseases, and so I feel like these things are happening to me. I don't have a role in that. It's, I don't know why this is happening. I get in the car or I step out into the sun. I didn't used to have any problems with any of these things. I used to be able to drive. I used to be able to sunbathe. Like I could be out there all day. It's like what happened to me, not knowing, the role of these traumas in affecting my nervous system and shutting it down. Like I'm just thinking, last time I checked, I could play sports and do full-time school and work, and I could, just have a normal life. And then the next thing I know, some shit hits the fan, and then I can't go outside because my body is so like heat intolerance, and I live in Arizona. Like, but you framed it, you shifted it, and you're like, hey, you have a role in this. So, like you say it very gently, but and very like reading what what I was ready to hear.
I didn't drill sergeant it, right?
You weren't like, all right, listen, this is boot camp. But after a while of like when I realized I'm doing the same exercises every time, and I'm having like the same kind of, I'm like, when are we gonna get to the next thing? I'm like, oh, they're waiting for me. Like, so I'm like, okay, I gotta step it up, or otherwise I'm gonna be doing the same amount of sets. I'm like, I wanna push for more. I want my life back, and so I'm like, well, it must be up to me then. So I have to start rethinking, because once those things happen to you with the POTS, like once every time you stand up that you feel dizzy, or every time you go up a flight of stairs, like you're literally out of breath, like you're 80 years old and I'm like 25, like used to be a runner. Like, I mean, it's just so quickly that I slipped into that kind of, I don't know if victim mentality is the right, it sounds kind of harsh, but
I like calling it you get put in a box.
Yes.
Because you were put in a box by a lot of practitioners, right? They told you this is how it is, and they have a big authority in the medical world on health and things like that. So you have to take their word for it. So when they tell you this is what you have, this is what you have to do, this is going to be your life. Like most people believe it. You just didn't have any other training at that time to help you think otherwise. So that you got put in a box, and you're in that box for a while.
I was, and it is just like, it's crazy to me to think how much I started to make myself smaller, make my life fit into this box, and started giving up on my goals and my future, and start just assuming. It's hard not to do. Like, we are so adaptable, I think, that impressionable by the influence of these people that we go to when we're in times of need and vulnerable and like feeling in crisis, for me and many other people that you work with. So it can be easy to get into the assumption that just because this has been happening so much recently, it's going to be like this forever.
Correct.
And that is such a
it's a behavior,
mental,
right? It's
that happens. That happens with anxiety and depression. Like, you get this, which is something I also been diagnosed with before in the past, and ADHD. Like, these labels I've gotten when I was having symptoms that I think were just pretty normal, like responses from the stressors that I was having. Mm-hmm. And I got those. It was like, to me, once I learned that this approach, this new way of looking at things, that's like, you do have power, and you have your ability to set an intention and to counter what other people may be telling you you're capable of. Like, that applies to physical health, and for me, it was so easy to bridge that connection to the mental health diagnosis I've been given in the past from psychiatrists, therapists, etc. So for me, it was the same thing. I was like, so back then, I was diagnosed with depression, and anxiety or ADHD. So I'm like, so is that just like how I am now? Like, when does it stop? Is this like, and then some people are like, it's genetic.
So how many of those people talk to you about being able to heal from that stuff?
I was seeing a therapist that I started to realize this wasn't going to work, because they were saying to me they believed, like, once you have this diagnosis, you can only control your response to your triggers. Like, you can't necessarily make them go away, which is true to a certain extent. But Skip, on the other hand, my hypnotherapist, really challenged that framework, because his approach is very much like, if you want to change your thoughts, change your life, like, you have a lot more power than you possibly imagine to shape your life. And you don't have to be like, just because you had a diagnosis or just because you have these symptoms, even if you've been having them for 30 years. He has so many client stories like and testimonies he's told me, and I've read reviews. And it's not just him, like other practitioners are doing that too. But yeah, I was like, if my therapist doesn't even think that you can really like get beyond your diagnosis, like you just live with it and you manage your symptoms. I'm like, this is exactly what wasn't working for me about my physical health treatment plans with the doctors that I was seeing. They were saying, okay, you're having this symptoms, you're having dizziness and headaches. Okay, drink more water. Like, okay, but why am I having the problem? Like, yeah, those things are helpful, and you know, you want to do, like, you have to take lots of little steps that don't seem like they're maybe making that much of a difference. They do, like, they can go a long way, but like we were saying, like the Band-Aid solution, it's just not, it wasn't manageable, and it wasn't enough for me to get my life back. Like, I wanted more out of my life, and I eventually, it took some time and a lot of confidence, like boosting, and people like you and Dr. Lavender and Skip, like pushing me to, hey, you know, are you, like Dr. Lavender is always asking me like, how your workout's going? Like, how's your polar plunge going? And I'm like, you want me to do that? Like, I don't, like, no one else is telling me to do that. Like, I don't know if I can do that. And he, like, doesn't even, like, question it. Like, he's just like, so, like, all right, good luck with your workout. He always says that after I get adjusted, the chiropractor. Awesome. So it's That's just awesome. Like it's like the assumption, you know? He's just like, yeah, up and up. Like, you got it. So people like that, pushing the limits of
like
of that
systems,
box
yeah,
that
the
I had.
Belief systems that you were kind of molded to believe.
Yeah. So.
Wow. So let's talk about what you're up to now, right? So we kind of talked about where you were, things that we've done, and I'll explain a little bit more about. I'll just actually take that moment. So,
sure.
If I'm going to summarize like your case and what we did. You know, when we first tested you, it showed that your pathways were actually pretty darn good. So we knew that the integration was off, and therefore the tolerance was low. So oftentimes when I see stuff like that, I know there's usually some type of trauma. In this case, it was like an emotional trauma. Those often screw up the fight or flight part of the nervous system. They don't always make changes with the pathways. So that was the first clue that I knew we had to approach this the way that we did. And it took a little bit to really get, I think, on the same page as you. But the thing that I'm gonna congratulate you on is you were the one that did all the work from day one, right? Like, being sick is hard. Getting better is hard. Choose your heart, right? And you chose. And now you're feeling the way you are today because of the choices that you've made and the commitment you made to your own health. So that was really cool to see. Pushing you was a lot of fun too, because there was a lot of, I'm not ready for this. And you would just kind of like get up and walk off, and I'm like, okay, so that's it for the day. But then you'd come back. There were days where you would just leave, right? That was early on. That only happened a couple times. And then there's days where you'd like go take a break, and then you'd come back for more. And I'm like, okay, we got her. She's in. And then there's days where you roll in and you're like, all right, I'm ready to work. Let's go. And I'm like, holy cow, who is this girl, right? And then, you know, the next thing I know, you're starting to have conversation with your friends about the things that you've been doing. And it's like, hey, guys, you really need to change this, that, or the other. Or maybe try these exercises. So you started becoming like the practitioner a little bit. And that was really, really cool to see. When I talked about the caterpillar to the butterfly, like, I've been watching this the entire time. Like, I've got like pictures in my mind when you were like a caterpillar curled up in a ball and you would like barely poke your head out. And then you started doing your crawling thing. And I'm like, you know, one of those little chubby green ones with all the little legs. and then you come rolling in here a little bit faster. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. And then we get to that point where you start challenging stuff, right? If we talk a little bit about the polyvagal theory, which we've touched on, right? The polyvagal theory is basically 3 different systems. One is our fight, flight, or freeze system, most commonly freeze. The second piece is the fight or flight, where I call it action. And then the third part is what I call happy hour, or to break it down differently, we've got the dorsal vagal, the fight or flight system, and the ventral vagal. A lot of people, when they come in here, are in the dorsal vagal and the ventral vagal. You were dorsal. You were like shut down, right? Something happens, loud noise, dog barks, done.
Yeah.
Right? Then we got into the I'm going to start voicing my opinion phase, which is where you started to get combative with, like, not combative physically, but like your opinion started to matter because you felt it mattered. And then you started doing the work and trying the things and fighting against, well, why am I not any better? Okay, let's go. That's like time to go to the next stage. And then we get to this ventral vagal, which I call happy hour. Like, who's not happy at happy hour, right? Having a good time, throwing back a drink. It's loud, it's fun. You're talking, you're catching up. And then you like don't really have a care in the world. That's kind of what like the ventral vagal happy hour thing is to me. And that's kind of like how you're walking in today. You're just rolling up. You're like, yeah, I wanted to get all dolled up. And you matching your makeup, your eyeliner with your bag. You're just excited to share your story.
Yeah.
It's been a super, super awesome ride. And my hope is that I don't have to treat you anymore, ever.
Which is not something that you hear every day in the medical world, Like, some people want you to keep coming back.
Yep.
And
if I had my goal, every patient would start as a neuro patient. They'd work through and they'd graduate to the point where you only need or want chiropractic care. That would be my goal.
Yeah.
You came from another chiropractic colleague of mine who I work with. He sends a lot of people this way. So he's your chiropractor, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just another resource now. If for anybody that you know, if anything ever happens, you just come see me for that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of my explanation of working her brain. We had to start low and slow for what you could tolerate. That was the key. Right.
While you're talking, it reminded me that when I first started, I didn't even start with exercises. I only did passive for what, Bree? Maybe like 1 or 2 months.
It's like a month, probably like 6 weeks, I think.
And
so I told your mom, I was like, listen, I think I can help. Yeah. I think everything that we're going to do is going to be too much for her nervous system to handle. I think the next 6 weeks is going to, and I'm breaking this down and summarizing, the next 6 weeks is going to help her become very comfortable with us. The laser therapy, PEMF, and vagal nerve stim is going to help her heal from a very passive, low stimulation point of view. So she's going to be able to tolerate the passive care.
But even that, like, I had to be fully reclined and, like, just to recover from the drive. Like,
right.
And then with the headphones, with, what is it called?
The vagal nerve stim?
Yeah, that would really irritate me. Yeah. Because
your brain was thinking that everything was a threat, right? It was already on high alert getting out of the car. So everything is elevated or amplified in nervous systems like yours in the beginning. And I know we were doing some breathing, right? Probably like once a month, every couple months, we'll run into cases or individuals with their nervous systems that are kind of so on the fritz that we have to start them with breathing. Like, we can't do any exercises. And you're just one of those.
Yeah.
But if we didn't do it that way, I don't think we'd be here right now.
Yeah.
Because we can only push the nervous system as far as it can tolerate. We don't want to push it like in a workout where you break the muscles down, we go till failure, and then you have 3 to 4 days of recovery before you do it again.
Yeah.
The nervous system doesn't handle that, because when it fatigues, we get anxiety, we get brain fog, we get shut down, we get headaches, we get migraines, we get vision issues, we get light sensitivity, sound sensitivity, we get irritability, we get insomnia, right?
Yeah.
And the shutdown and avoidance behavior that you had dealt with for so long.
Yeah.
And so we have to move like alongside you and with you. Like, we don't push you.
Yeah.
Some of these cases in the very beginning. We are pushing you, but you don't even really notice it.
Yeah.
right? We're building some confidence. We're building some stability with our laser and PEMF and vagal nerve stim. Like, we're stimulating the pathways. We're activating the brain from the point of laser, and even some of the discussions we'd have, right? Some of those were, hey, tell me about some of these triggers. Maybe let's
Yeah.
try this next time,
Yeah.
right? And then we read the book.
Yeah.
And then when you were ready, it wasn't right away, right? And then it's like there's a time and a place for each form of our exercises that we provide people.
Yeah.
And I think there's only a couple times where we went a little slow, and that's when you were like, hey, I'm doing the same exercise. I want more. Great. You're ready. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so it was it was so much fun because we didn't know who we were going to get coming in the office for a while, right? Every visit was a little bit different.
Yeah.
But not only did we have the pleasure of working through that with you, I know myself, I've done this for a while, and I've run into I've got the experience with individuals and nervous systems like yours, but the rest of the crew, I don't know if they'd had those experiences. And so now they have. So in a way, like, thank you for showing up here so that we could all learn.
I could be the guinea pig.
Well, not only the guinea pig, but more so you taught us a lot. You taught us compassion. You taught us empathy. You taught us patience. And with you going through that and us going through that with you, that allows us to connect with other patients better. So that the next person that walks in with like sunglasses on, a jacket over their head, saying they don't want to be here, they just want to sit in the car, but knowing that they made it here, so they want to get better. They just don't necessarily have the tools. We now, as a team, know how to handle that on a level that other places don't. And so I know that we now have all the tools to help people, like the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me,
No offense taken.
right? But your purpose, right? We talked a lot about your purpose, right?
Yes.
We've talked about that for a while. And, you know, you said, you're like, I want to help other people, like, with this stuff. And that's what you're doing on this podcast right now by sharing your story. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to be here. Truly.
Well, it's been a pleasure and a lot of fun to meet you, learn who you really are. Because when people come in, that's not who they really are. That's probably the better thing about all this, is that's who you were because something happened.
Yeah.
But now
I was caught in that.
You were caught up in that box.
Yeah.
And now you're like, that box is like, I don't even know where to find that box anymore.
Fit.
It's like folded up and tossed, right?
Yeah.
And so now, like, your personality, who you really are, comes out every time you walk in the door. And that, to me,
it feels a lot different. Yeah.
is the best part about the whole thing, right? You get better, or you improve your health, you learn stuff, you become this whole new person, you grow into this, like, beautiful butterfly, and the rest of your family is able to do it right alongside you.
Yeah.
Like, that,
which
to
is
me,
huge.
Is the coolest part. All of it's cool, okay?
Yeah.
Like, for those listening, everything's cool about you and your story. It's, you know, I learned a long time ago, I had the opportunity to help someone, and they started helping other people. So it's kind of like this network marketing scheme, this pyramid scheme of helping individuals, right?
Yeah, pay it forward.
And so my sole purpose was to try to help you. I was lucky enough to work with the rest of your family along the way.
Yeah.
And I think it all had its place and its role in what you've dealt with, what you were told, different, things different boxes you were put into, and you've literally defied all of those odds and worked your tail off to the point where you can just sit, chillin', hanging, on a podcast, just basically telling people that you don't have to listen to the other people.
Yeah.
Right? So now let's to kind of not wrap this up, but to get to the next chapter. Let's talk about some goals that you have So
Yeah.
the next time we have you on here,
Okay.
you can tell us how those have gone.
Yeah.
So hit me with them.
So, let me see. Okay. So my older brother is a pilot and he's in school, and he's been taking my family. He has his what's it called? The first part, his private license. And he's been taking slowly like everyone in my family, and for a long, like, he's been doing this for a while now. And so for me, like, I thought that's gonna be way long off. Like, it's not even a goal in my mind that I could do that anytime soon, because I'm still working on driving in the car. So like because if even like the first time he flew, like, he doesn't even have issues like I have, and he was like throwing up and stuff. So he's but his exposure, with exposure and practice and repetition, his tolerance has gone, through the roof. So now he doesn't even think about it. But Ruthie, my younger sister, who has also been treated and graduated from here, she has also had a lot of motion sickness, and she went up with him when she was just here for Christmas, and she said, like, she didn't even feel it. Like,
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so that got me thinking, like, well, so I was talking to Mom about it. I was like, so, well, maybe it is possible. Like, all these other things I started doing, I'm like, it wasn't really a goal because I couldn't even fathom it yet. But then I see, my sister doing it, and, I'm like, well, I've challenged other things. So that builds, like, every victory, there's the confidence builds. And so my brother texted me. He booked a session for this Thursday. I'm going up.
That is so freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
we'll have to get our binoculars out.
Yeah. Catch me in the skies at 1:30 on Thursday.
Stewardess.
So I'm really excited. Who knows? If I have symptoms, like, that would be totally normal. This happens to some people and they go up. But, I know for me, the biggest thing is, like, it's worth a try because I've been pushing so many other limits. I'm like, why not just see what happens? If I get triggered, I know what to do. So I'm like, well, the worst that could happen, I've already experienced before. For, case in point, the first time I came here. That was like exactly a year ago. So I have a ton of improvement, and healing in the past year that has helped me. So, like, it can't be as bad as that after I go. So I have what I need, and that is a huge confidence booster, like, in terms of moving forward in the future. This is my toolkit is, like, I have, had to get a utility belt to store all of my tools.
I love it.
So
I love it.
yeah.
Awesome. That is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank
so proud of the work that you've put in. I'm grateful to have met you and seen your I don't know. I keep transformation.
Metamorphosis.
Yeah, I keep using
you
the
said?
metamorphosis,
Yeah.
right? Like, I know you're
I
not
like
a
that.
caterpillar. You're a butterfly now, right?
Yeah.
But, to watch that unfold over the time, and just watching how you've really worked through everything and how you speak about things now is just, it's just a testament to how hard you're working and how much effort you're putting into it. And for anybody that's listening that knows anybody like this, or has an inkling that somebody might be dealing with these things, even if they're not sharing it, there's hope.
Oh, yeah.
And
so much hope.
It's Abby here is just an example of that. And I thank you. Just thank you. You were a great patient to work with, and you're an even better person. And I'm just lucky to have met you and your family. So thanks a bunch.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So now for the housekeeping. Thanks, everybody, for watching the Neuro Reset podcast. Make sure you check out some of the other podcasts. We've got doctors, we've got technology, we've got other patients dealing with telling their story and dealing with some other issues and how they came out of that. I'm Dr. Teams at Desert Brain and Spine. We'll see you next time on the Neuro Reset Podcast.